Hi, I'm Jason Wick, Director of Agronomy for MFA Incorporated, and I'd like to welcome you to our training camp research site where we do in-field testing on a number of products, whether it be fungicides, insecticides, dicamba, variety trials, fertility trials, and the likes. Today we're standing in front of a trial that we set up to look at dicamba volatility with different tank mixes and issues that we're seeing in the field. We just come out of the 2017 season where we saw a significant amount of off-target movement out of our own rigs. Looking for reasons of why that possibly could have been and different things. So we set up this trial in 2018 to strictly look at different combinations of tank mixes. There's been a lot of talk about ammonium sulfate, different salts of glyphosate, and other issues that can cause volatility or movement off target. So I want to set up a little bit of how we conducted this trial, the way we set up this research behind us here, and then we'll step out into the field here in a few minutes to take a look at it. So I got to set the picture here. The beans were about V3, V4 when we did the treatments or applications. We had this set up as applying what we called hoop houses over the top of 2 rows of soybeans. So the hoop houses were 15 foot long by 5 foot wide. In a few minutes you'll see 2 pink flags. That represents the ends of the hoop houses that were placed out here. Those hoop houses with a flat that I'm holding right here was placed over the beans with a flat underneath for a total of 24 hours. At the end of the 24 hours, we come out and removed the hoop houses with the plastic as well as the flats out of in between the rows. The flats never touched the soybeans or any of the likes. In the flats, we filled these up with the soil from our research site here. The pH was a 6.9. We had it at field capacity with moisture, and it was a nice wet soils we put over the top. We treated the flats a significant ways away from the soybeans as affected, as we know that dicamba at very small amounts can show symptomology, or the soybeans will show the symptomology of dicamba even at very, very small amounts. So we treated the flats away from this site. We had a total of 14 different treatments. Those treatments were mixed in little bottles like this. The treatments were figured on covering the total amount of area of 5 by 15. That's how much dicamba, Roundup, ammonium sulfate, whatever the tank mix combination we were looking at, was mixed in a spray bottle like this and treated off-site, where we had the soil in here at the top, squirted the herbicide out until it was empty or all the way out, made sure that the straw was in the bottom corner. Then we would carry the flat, put it in underneath the tunnel. The tunnels were then placed over the top of the flat and over the 2 rows of soybeans. And then we would walk back to the area, change PPE, and then grab the next flat and do that 14 times. We started from the south side of our site here with some of the tank mixes, and we'll get down there to treatment 14. That's where we started when we started placing the flats. We had a directly south wind the whole time that the flats were in place, as well as the hoop houses. So I want to set that up a little bit. We started on the south end with some of our tank mixes, ending on what I would consider at the time our most volatile, our non-improved formulation of dicamba, being Clarity. So that's what we finished with, so we didn't have any contamination with Clarity. That's the last thing that we touched. Just to set the stage a little bit further, we never had any straight goods dicamba on our site at all this year, so the damage we're seeing was all placed from sealed containers like this when we brought them to the site, which I said were treated about 500 or 50 yards down away from the site where we were at with the south wind, so we didn't have any chance of having any contamination. So with that, guys, I think that that gives a good overview of that. If you guys will come with me, I'd like to show you a few of the 14 treatments so we have a better understanding of what's going on in the field. All right, I am standing between the 2 treatments, as I mentioned a little bit ago, of Clarity. Okay, so Clarity on my right here is a half a pound of Clarity, and on my left is a pound of Clarity. Now I'm going to pick up some leaves from this site, and you can see a little bit of the damage here from the dicamba on that side, on the half pound, as well as even on the 1 pound of Clarity that we have out here. So we do know that Clarity was the non-improved formulation, and this is not a labeled application of dicamba. Clarity is not labeled for over-the-top use of soybeans, but remember, we did not have, the flats did not touch the plants. What I want you guys to visualize is that the stakes that are in the center of the row, right in the middle of where the hoop houses were placed, is that the dicamba in the pound, or the Clarity at the pound rate, went all the way out the end of the tunnels. Okay, so the damage is visual clear to the end of the 15 feet, or the 7.5 feet from where the flat was staked on the pound rate, Whereas the half pound, you have to look a little harder to find it, but you can find very small symptomology clear to the end of the tunnels on that as well. We know that there has been some illegal application of Clarity over the past couple years, and this is something that you can see would not be something we would recommend doing over the top of our soybeans due to some of the increased volatility and the non-improved formulation that we have out there. So again, on my right hand side here, we have a half pound of Clarity, and on my left hand side, this is a pound of Clarity. I just want you guys to keep in mind as we move forward throughout our treatments that this is your frame of reference for where we started from on the dicamba formulation to what's available on the market today. And with that, we're going to move over to look at some of the new improved formulation. And for sake of time, I'd like to talk about just one of the new improved formulations. I can't tell a difference between Ingenia or XtendiMax when it comes to volatility out of our hoop houses. So we did do XtendiMax and Ingenia at two different rates. So we did the half a pound of XtendiMax as well as a pound with XtendiMax, a half pound of Ingenia with a pound of Ingenia. And right at the point to where we have the stakes in the center of the plots, we can see a little bit of the damage that you would associate with dicamba in all of the treatments. But there's really not a difference when you look at the half pound or the pound, and the movement was very, very minimal within a foot of where the flat was placed. But as you start inspecting down the rows where the tunnel was at, we couldn't see any damage that moved any further than a foot away from where the flat was placed. Now keep in mind that these hoop houses were placed on a Monday morning. The temperature during the day got up to about 97 degrees. It was hot, humid, and then it was on there all day for 24 hours. So it is designed to show the volatility, increase volatility chances, or make those environmental conditions favorable for volatility. And so that's what it's designed to do. So when we made it conditions conducive for volatility, we didn't see any of the movement out of the ends of the tunnels, like I said, within about a foot of where the flat is. And then we're going to move on down to look at some of the stuff that would definitely be considered a no-no. All right, now this is where we get into some really interesting things that we start looking at maybe what happened last year with some of our rigs as well as some other people in the industry. When we start thinking about some of the products that are available on the market and the general practices that we've done as a commercial applicator, even just as an applicator on our farm. When we think about an operator, when we're going from a Roundup Ready field to another Roundup Ready field, not very often do we clean out or empty out the spray rig or even clean or triple rinse that system. Prior to the launch of the dicamba system or the Xtend system, we were focused heavily on removing dicamba from the sprayer after we get done spraying a Roundup Ready Xtend field. When in reality, we probably should have been focused on cleaning prior to going to a Roundup Ready field or to an Xtend field, as well as cleaning the tank afterwards. And the plot I'm standing between right now, it was really an eye-opener for me. We've talked about the effects of AMS and what kind of damage it will do into the new improved formulations of dicamba, whether it be XtendiMax or Ingenia. And so on my right, we wanted to look at what would happen if we used a 1x rate. We put in 1x rate of AMS with XtendiMax on that flat. And we placed that in the center flat, remember, for 24 hours. And the damage was significant compared to the straight XtendiMax. Now keep in mind, this is one site, 1 year. Looking at it, this was set up for our visual study to show and train our employees on the importance of cleaning out a sprayer. So if we look to my right here, we can see that the damage went completely out the tunnels and a good 5 to 7 feet past the end of the tunnels. The damage was significant when we looked at the AMS at the 1x rate. We can see the severe cupping. We see that the nodes are stacked. The nodes that are still coming out are showing that cupping symptomology. We are about 17 days after the initial application and about 16 days after the removal of the flat and removal of the hoop house. So at the 1x rate, that's just assuming, hey, guy's going to put in a full rate of AMS at that 8.5 pounds per 100 gallons. Okay, so that's what this simulates. We also wanted to look at, we talked about when we go from one field to another field. So if I'm spraying a Roundup Ready field and I'm going to go spray a Roundup Ready Xtend field, from an applicator standpoint, hey, that's a Roundup Ready field. I don't need to worry about cleaning out. So if we had, for an example, a 100 or 1,000 gallon sprayer we had 100 gallons of solution left in the sprayer. That'd be a 1/10 rate of AMS. I wanted to look at that, or if you're running an 800 gallon sprayer with 80 gallons of solution. We know that those recirculation lines and the main lines on a sprayer can carry a significant amount of fluid and spray solution throughout them. So we wanted to look at what would happen if we had a small amount of AMS in the tank. And to my left is XtendiMax at 22 ounces or a half pound with a 1/10 rate, 0.8 pounds of AMS per 100 gallons. And I'm sitting here today visually cannot tell a difference between the 1x rate on my right versus a 1/10 rate on my left. Now, keep in mind that this is treating that flat with the total solution for a 5 by 15 foot area. Okay, so keep that in mind, that flat had a higher concentration than what that flat would be representative as if you just sprayed across the top. So what this tells me is, one, that a very small amount of ammonium sulfate is detrimental to XtendiMax or Ingenia. Okay, for sake of time, I'm not going to show you the Ingenia, but we'll take pictures and show that to you, but it is exactly the same as what we're seeing with the XtendiMax. So we know that, one, AMS causes significant problems. Two, that my study, I didn't go low enough rate with AMS to show how detrimental it is. So if I went to a 1/10 rate, maybe I should go to a 1/20th or a 1/50th rate of AMS to see what kind of symptomology would show up. I had symptomology and movement completely out the end of the tunnels. Like I said, a good 5 to 7 feet outside the tunnels on both ends. Now keep in mind, this plot is laying east and west, and we had a straight south wind, cross-sectional wind the whole time that the tunnels were placed in this area. Okay, so I want to keep that in mind, that we're going to repeat this study, and we'll be looking at different rates of AMS and the impact they can have, as well as maybe some other things we're going to talk about here in a few seconds. All right, so right here where we're standing right now is where we had AMS with Ingenia. So we had the 1/10 rate of AMS with Ingenia, and this is the 1x rate with Ingenia. Just wanted you guys to have a visual of that. All right, now this is where it gets really interesting, and we had 4 final treatments here that we were going to look at, but I'm standing in between 2 of them. This is where it gets interesting. This is one of these products is one of these size treatments is labeled, one is not, and this is really where it gets really interesting from a standpoint of being a custom applicator and understanding the risk. Now I want you to keep in mind, before I go through these treatments, we've talked about that this trial was set up to cause or to be favorable for off-target movement, okay, through volatility. Those hoop houses, it gets really hot in there and we see that movement. Okay, so when we set this up, we looked at tape. We wanted to look at different salts of glyphosate, okay, so whether that be a DMA salt, K salt, or Buck Plus with IPA. Okay, so we wanted to look at that and what kind of differences or issues that might cause looking at different tank mixes. That is something that I've always been curious about since we start looking at these different things. You know, what does our DRA, whether it be in Research2 with our water conditioner in it, what does Power Shot, what does Volunteer, what does different tank mix partners do to volatility. But for the sake of time and space for where we are located to do our research at, and doing 14 different treatments with hoop houses, you guys know the work that goes into doing that with the plastic and making sure you take care of contamination. So on my right is XtendiMax with PowerMax, okay? And we did see movement when we put XtendiMax with PowerMax, we see movement to the end of the tunnels. Now as far as damage, the damage right close to where the flat was placed was increased compared to straight XtendiMax at the same rate, at that 22 ounce rate, the half-pound rate in the straight good product, okay? But we did see movement even with the PowerMax at a small dose rate clear to the end of the tunnels, okay? It is not near as bad as what we saw with the AMS. The AMS obviously caused us significant issues, but with the PowerMax and XtendiMax in the same mix, we saw a significant increase over the straight good product of XtendiMax on the movement side. Now, just keep in mind, this was set up to do that. Now, to my left, this is really where it's interesting. It's a step change, significantly increased injury when we look at Durango. Now, Durango with XtendiMax or Ingenia is not a labeled application today, but you can definitely see a big difference in the plant, in the cupping, compared to the PowerMax, okay? These were at labeled rates of XtendiMax or PowerMax and Durango. So when you look at the two, we affected the soybean significantly more with the Durango than we did with the Power Max, with XtendiMax. I think this is very consistent with what the research is showing, looking at, hey, different salts of glyphosate have different effects on volatility. And I think that's important to understand. That might be part of the reason why Monsanto has been working on a different salt of glyphosate to reduce some of that volatility. It's very important that we understand there are some best management practices out there. And here at MFA, we've made the stance that, hey, we want to use Power Max with XtendiMax as well as Ingenia from a standpoint of some of the research and the data that's out there. And we just replicated that in our field to show the same symptomology. There is a big difference between the two. I do not have Buccaneer Plus out here from a space standpoint, but really wanted to look at different salts and how they can affect it on different tank mixes. What I do want you guys to think about is that this tank mix, or this partner here, we sprayed on thousands of acres across our trade territory and our geography. Okay, so not trying to alarm anybody, but we do a very good job of trying to manage that and understanding the risk associated with it. And we at MFA, we want to make sure that we keep our herbicide where we put them. So we're doing everything we can to train our applicators to know the risk, know how to do it, and also follow all federal and state labels and guidelines for the application of any product, not just dicamba. So when we think about stewarding any product, the label's the law. We try to follow that label as the best that we can. So we want to make sure that we steward this technology from a standpoint that, hey, we need this technology. We have herbicide resistance showing up. Dr. Kevin Bratt, University of Missouri, in the 6-way resistant water hemp that was found, less than 50 miles from here. That ought to be alarming to anybody. And the way that we're using Liberty today, we're not going to have that technology very much longer either. I think that anybody that is watching this video will understand some of the risk associated with that. What this does demonstrate is that, one, overlapping residuals is still going to be key for the future of the dicamba technology, as well as any future technologies coming down the pipeline, whether that be the HT3 soybean, being tolerant to glyphosate, glufosinate, and dicamba. The biggest utility we have, in my opinion, in the dicamba side is to start clean, stay clean, use it to burn down on our winter annuals, that giant ragweed, mare's tail, henbit, some of those weeds that are out there, and come back, with our second post shot of residual, that 21 to 24 days later, and then maybe use Liberty to clean it up at that point if need be. So we always get questions about, been talking about, our protocol this past year on dicamba. And I'm very proud and very happy to say that, our team did a great job of scouting those fields, and I want to tell them thank you for doing a good job doing that and keeping us up to date on the growth stages that are out there. We saw something a little bit abnormal this year compared to what we've had in the past, was that our soybeans reached that flowering state a little sooner than they have in the past, or was typical for our geography. So we had beans flowering that first week of June. That 10th, 11th, 12th of June was a significant part. And we did a good job, I think, in my opinion, of managing those risks and saying, hey, this field's not a fit, and then shutting her down when we didn't need to be out there, and making sure that, hey, we're trying to be good stewards of this product, because our producers, our farmer owners need this technology as they go into the future. So we need to do everything we can to steward this product and make sure we're doing it right. So we need to make sure we understand, hey, we need this technology. Overlapping residuals are still a must for any cropping system that's out there. That could be corn or beans, but obviously for sure in the bean side of things. And I just wanted to say, hey, we think that this technology is a good technology that we need, and this technology is going to be preserving the Liberty technology as we go into the future, as we look at the stacks that are hopefully coming down the pipeline pending regulatory approval. So with that, I appreciate your time today and look forward to any questions, comments, concerns you might have. Feel free to reach out to me or anybody on my team if you'd like to ask any questions.